Great, I'm going to get started now. Want to kind of quickly introduce myself and what we're talking about today. So today we're going to be talking about prompting best practices. We're going to be talking about web and mobile, so I'll differentiate between the two, both the prompting to ask for permissions for mobile and prompting for web push notifications. I am an enterprise customer success manager. I've worked here at OneSignal for a couple of years. I worked in mobile marketing before that as well. So I've been in this industry for a little while and currently just working with some of our more enterprise customers through OneSignal. I'm going to go ahead and get started here. Just to walk you through the format of today. So first, I'm going to kind of quickly give an overview about why push permissions are important at all. We have some stats to share from a state of mobile marketing survey that we did with our existing customers. Then I'm going to go into some of our best practices, things that I recommend, things that I've seen that are successful from our customers. And then I'm going to hold time at the end for Q&A. So I'm going to go ahead and get started. So the first thing I wanted to talk about was what pre-permissions can do for prompting. So we've seen from our user base that when people use a pre-permission prompt, that improves iOS opt-in rates by 50%. So what we mean by a pre-permission prompt, you'll see on the right, there is an example of the hard Apple prompt when they're asking you for notifications, and you'll see an example on the left of what we call a pre-permission prompt or a soft permission prompt, which is a permission prompt that you have made before the hard prompt, or even to link and lead into the hard prompt that allows you to kind of give context and brand it yourself. So we've seen that those can help improve those opt-in rates by 50%. Those are required for iOS. You have to ask through the Apple hard prompt for permissions. It's different for Android. Some Android apps still will ask for prompts, and they've seen a 15% bump. Although I'm going to argue, we'll get to that in a minute, that I think that metric's likely to change in the coming future. Next, sort of what happens after someone has opted in to push notifications, what makes it so important. Those users are going to be retained at twice the rate of people who have not signed up for push notifications. Part of what the reasoning is behind this, if you don't have someone's push token, it kind of cuts off the ability to continually reach out to users when they aren't using their app or aren't using your app, or potentially if you don't have other communication channels with them, maybe you don't have an email address or things like that. If you don't have a push token to send to them, it's hard to stay top of mind, it's hard to keep your app relevant, and it's hard to send them any kind of life cycle journey messaging to help them see the value of your app or get them to certain goals within the app. If that's finishing registration, making a purchase, finishing level 4, whatever that might be. So those are both mobile specific stats, but we've seen similar success stories for web push users as well. Why it's helpful to kind of pre-prompt that, customize it, and how it really helps with retention and bringing people back to the website and being able to kind of customize their journey. So now we are going to hop into the best practices section. So first, I want to talk about one of our best practices for mobile is, of course, those pre-permission prompts. So what this does, as we said, it improves those opt-in rates, but it also allows you to control the narrative. As you can see on the far right side here, the Apple hard prompt, it really it's very technical. It's sort of defining notifications and how to adjust them, but from a marketing perspective, it doesn't really give you a lot to work with. So what a push pre-prompt will do is it allows you to kind of control that story and talk a little more about what those push notifications are going to entail. If you're anything like me, I also think that pre-permission prompts kind of preempt a user's apprehension. So as you can see from the text, Palisades, this is a customer of ours that does this very well, would like to send you notifications. My natural instinct is to always ask, why do they want to send me notifications? And so you can kind of get ahead of that and go ahead and answer that question before they're prompted with that. And then the next thing I wanted to emphasize going back to the point I made earlier about those Android opt-in rates, even kind of improving how many people are going to opt in for notifications from those soft pre-permission prompts. So in September, Android's actually going to change their model so that it more closely resembles Apple's model. So they are going to require this in the future. Some people on this call, maybe you haven't done this if you're a mobile app because your user base is mostly Android and you didn't have the need to until now. But I would really think about this carefully and look into this because Android is going to be changing to this model. So you'll want to likely have a push pre-permission set up to have people opt in for both Android and iOS. The other benefit, this is also kind of specific to either in web push when you are kind of setting the tone and the language around why you're asking, or doing it in a soft permission prompt as well, is it allows you to set the user's expectations about what they're going to get for notifications. So one thing it allows you to do is highlight the incentives for push. So you can see in this kind of mock game ask, we're saying that we can use notifications to receive live game alerts and alerts for special events. So both of those are short, sweet, very clear value props. For my news orgs, I often like to have them emphasize like breaking news, current, staying up to date with events. I think it's really important to have like language in there that both asserts what you're going to do, but also some immediacy and some excitement, like up to date, current, etc. That kind of can help people see some of that value. The next is controlling the branding and the design for the ask. So if you are doing a web prompt, you can put your logo in there, and you can also change the copy of the web push ask, which I think can be helpful in terms of saying what they're going to be getting, and also so that they know that this ask is coming from you and your brand, not just like when the native prompt comes up or when the hard prompt comes up, it almost looks like it's coming like from the phone rather than something that was like strategically set up from your brand. Same with push permission prompts. Our in-app builder is really dynamic, and it's also very easy. You can change it without having to release code. So you have very strict control over what the branding looks like, what the story is, what the images are. I know we've had some like fitness apps who have had like little graphics of people working out, things like that, that are kind of cute and fun. It's also a really good introduction since these are likely going to be shipped pretty early in their journey on your app. Next, aligning expectations for push content. This is actually going to lead to higher continued opt-in rates if people know what they are opting in for. If they only have the context from the this app would like to send you notifications, they might not know exactly what that entails, and there might be a misalignment, or they might not end up wanting the kinds of notifications that you're sending. So I think it also is does a good job of making sure people know what they're getting into. My third point, brevity is key. I think this mock-up in-app has a really good example of it. It's the quick 2 reasons why you would want those events, and a high-level overview of, improve your game experience. Great. Brevity is key, even though this is a place for you to talk about your specific value prop. The shorter the better. Remember that this person is onboarding, and so the longer they're slowing down and reading, the longer that like onboarding is going to take, and the longer time to value and to like have fun playing in the app that user is going to have. Delay or trigger the prompt. So I want to caveat by saying this is going to look different for different apps and for different goals that you're looking to solve for in the moment. One thing that I think this can help with is it can stagger onboarding asks. So a lot of people will prompt like almost right away for a push permission, but I think there are a couple of alternatives that are a little more user-friendly and user-centric. So one would be staggering the onboarding asks. What I mean by that is when someone is onboarding, there are some apps that have kind of a long like sign up process, like maybe you need to make an account, maybe you need to connect a credit card, things like that. And in those situations, I think it's helpful to remember to like stagger asks, because like I think the thing to avoid, if possible, is if someone is like creating an account and they've just started entering their email and this is the first thing that pops up asking for push alerts. That's kind of annoying. It's gotten in the way of their process, and it's also like, oh, I'm already entering my email, now you want me to like move and pivot and get my push permission. So I think it's a good way to kind of stagger what you're asking for and make for a cleaner onboarding process. The second thing it does is ensure comfortability, especially there are certain apps where like incentive to like get started in the app is really high. I'm thinking about like gaming, things like that, where people have downloaded it with a lot of momentum to do a certain thing. And there are some apps where you kind of have a little more time for onboard. Like if someone is signing up for like, you know, like a subscription app or something they're going to kind of continually invest in. I have this for my news to podcast app. You're going to have a little more time to enter things, but if someone wants to get in there and play a game, they're going to want to go quickly, and they're going to want to like get comfortable with the app before you ask them for too much. There's definitely a formula to weigh here. So quantity versus quality of onboarding users. The thing to know is part of the reason you want to ask early is because the more people who opt into push notifications, if they, for instance, didn't finish setting up an account or didn't return after the first session, you have that push token, you continue to reach out to them. But the longer, usually, most situations, the longer you wait before asking for push notifications, the higher quality of users, because they've been in there a while, they've finished setting up, they have more context. So that's kind of a formula for individual orgs to look at separately. If you're trying to get as many push tokens as possible, go earlier. If you're looking to be really strategic about who you're reaching out to, you might want to wait a little bit later in the onboarding process. Capabilities that we have out of the box. For mobile, you can delay a certain number of seconds, or you can delay in between prompts, or you can also set up an in-app trigger. So this is a pretty light code way to just kind of take an event happening in your app, and once that event has happened, we'll trigger the ask from there. So out of the box, you can delay seconds and in between different in-app prompts, or you can code an in-app prompt specific to an event happening in your app, which I think is a really good way to do it. And then from a web perspective, you can delay the page view. So you can say like, you know, have this ask come up after 6 pages or 2 pages, you type in the number, or seconds, or a combination thereof. So if you have a website where maybe you're having like if you're working with a vendor who might have a coupon that comes up immediately if you enter your email address, maybe you want to have this automatically on the second page or something like that. You know, give them a little time if that ask is early. So you can do a combination thereof. So you could do like page 2, second 10, or one or the other out of the box. All right, hopping into the next one. This one is a little more product heavy, but notification categories. So this is a little more advanced, but something that's kind of like on trend. I think a lot of really like product-led, customer considerate groups have been doing this. It's not for everyone. Some people have like one central product that they don't need to break out into categories, and this isn't for you. But notification categories looks different for different apps. So here, the image on the left, we have our out-of-the-box web notification category setup. So you're able to have this, media is really popular for this use case. You're able to, out of the box, have people segment into which categories they're interested in. We go ahead and tag that on their device so that you can send them, you know, more tailored, personalized content. So maybe you send everyone breaking news and then additional articles for, you know, health or finance to those who have opted in. So that's one example for web. On the left, I have an image from, you know, a vendor who does a very great job of this, Spotify, of course. As they've continued to grow their different kinds of marketing channels, they've actually made different opt-in categories for every single one. So that's more built into the product, but we on OneSignal can support that from a technical side in the back end, but basically allowing people to choose exactly what's of interest to them, make them want to stay opted in by really catering to their experience. So the first thing this does, it gives users more agency over what they're receiving, make them want to stay longer. It has built-in segmentation too. So segmentation is key. We've found from our State of Mobile Messaging survey that with segmentation, you have about an 83% better engagement rate. So the cool thing is like this is built in. You know, you already have those segments from the beginning. You already have kind of like a deliberate mark of what people want to receive. And the good news is with the web push, this is easy to update and change without code if you need to. I've had news orgs who have like changed this for Olympic season, election season, released a podcast, things like that, where they had to like kind of change these in real time, and you can do that without code, which is nice because it means editors and marketers could do it. This is also, you know, some, you know, groups might have like some more marketing, some more, you know, transactional. You can split those out as well. All right. And next, you know, I think we kind of talked about the permission for push tokens, but there are other types of permissions, so it's definitely worth talking about. So it's worth optimizing your prompts for location, email, and SMS as well, and thinking about the journey of how they all layer together, because we can be asking a lot of our customers, and it's important to think about how we're prioritizing it and what's most important. So one of the things that I always emphasize is to place the most crucial ask first. So if there's a channel that is, you know, your favorite performer or that you've invested the most in at the moment, I definitely would think, you know, those ones should be, you know, emphasized, prioritized in that onboarding process. And then from there, I think it's worth describing the unique benefits for each prompt. I know earlier I showed you like kind of a brief overview of our Palisades app from the push permission screen. They have a location one as well, which helps. So Palisades is you know, ski resort. This helps people optimize you know, tracking their ski routes. It basically it unlocks a ton of value if they are allowing location to be tracked. So describing the unique benefits for each prompt is a good way to ensure that people aren't going to get like annoyed by too many, you know, opt-ins or you know, asks in that case. Out of the box, it's important to know we support push prompts for push tokens and for location out of the box with mobile. So basically you just select from a drop-down which you want to prompt from different buttons. It's easily customizable. We also have, you know, really open-ended, you know, you can have people, you know, click on certain buttons that you've set up on in-apps and take them to different places. So if there's a different ask that your app needs, reach out to us and let us know, because it's also highly customizable and we do have some additional capabilities there. And then for other prompts for web, we are able to support, you know, the push prompts for web, email capture, and SMS, or a combination of both, which you can see in the image here. So we do support both at once. So I'm going to end here. I think we have about 10 minutes left to answer questions. So I'm going to, you know, move into the question section. But just to reiterate, kind of the high-level themes. Push pre-permission if you're on mobile is really helpful to provide context and improve those opt-in rates. You're going to want to make sure that you're giving good context about what people are expecting and setting expectations. Optimize prompts for all the different things that you're asking for. Most important channels first. And yeah, it was really great talking to you guys today. And we're going to move into the question section. You can submit questions into the question box on the side of your screen. I'll be answering them. I have a few already to start with, so I'm going to get started there. And yeah, if you have any questions also, you'll notice in your application for OneSignal in the bottom right-hand corner, there is a little red envelope that will connect you to our support team. So if you ever have any questions about the technical setup behind any of this, we also have a lot of documentation on OneSignal docs that kind of review some of these best practices, how to set up a pre-permission, how to set up a local permission as well, you know, for location of your device, things like that. It's also keyword searchable, so you should be able to find a lot of this easily after this webinar as well. All right, I'm going to move into the questions section. First question, is it possible to edit the look and feel of web and mobile prompts within OneSignal? Yes, and then also most importantly, you can often do this without having to re-release the code, which is really key. So first I'll talk about how this looks like for mobile. If you're doing a category slide down, you are able to customize the language, the logo, as well as the categories. You're able to change those, as well as the delays. Certain other defaults, like do you want a message to go out immediately when they've opted in? That's all customizable and changeable out of the box. No code needed to release those changes. For mobile, similar thing, that's set up as an in-app message. You are able to change the look of the images, the buttons, or the text box. You're able to change all the pieces within that and re-release it if you'd like. You can also change timing, things like that, if that's how you're setting up that in-app to be triggered. So pretty easy to do a lot of that. I'll go into the next question. Are there best practices around retaining users who have opted in? Yes. So one of the ways that I typically recommend doing this is by thinking about the user journey split into goals. So different apps are going to function differently, of course. So I'd say maybe the first goal is having someone create an account. The second might be having someone add an item to their cart, browse something, like something, favorite something, or if it's a social app, reach out to someone. Gaming obviously has its own set where they might take a in-app purchase approach, or they might take an advertising approach. So setting what those goals are and kind of looping in between. So let's say, retaining users who have opted in, make a journey. We have a journeys product that allows you to set up a life cycle journey based on criteria that enters and exits someone from the capability. It's customized to them that way. If they finish onboarding immediately, they don't receive those messages. It's great. But an onboarding journey to have someone complete onboarding to a certain goal. From there, having someone complete key tasks in the app. So level 3, level 5, if you're a gaming app, things like that. And then the next set is around retaining users. Out of the box with one signal, we can track when someone was last active on a website or last active in a mobile app. And we can set up a retention campaign depending on your appetite for it or how often someone might be using the product in your app. You can set the day that they were last active and have a retention campaign, let's say hypothetically 30 days since their last session, have some outreach around getting them back into the app and showing them value again. Okay. Another question. How do we set up these prompts? Great question. I might want you to clarify if you're web or mobile before I go into more. I'll do a high level of each. But we can kind of go into detail depending on which setup is most important to you. This person who wrote in. From a mobile perspective, you're going to want to set up an in-app. From the in-app, you'll see there are click actions on the button. And one of the click actions is to have that button. Ideally, you're gonna have a yes button or a no button, do you want to opt in? Or are you interested in notifications? Or some people do one button that's just push notifications, allow this, next, and then it brings up the prompt. So you can have 2 buttons, 1 button, whatever your preference is. You're going to click the click action from there and have it trigger the push permission prompt. I recommend having an in-app trigger that indicates, whether someone has, if someone is iOS and not signed in before, you can have it, trigger their first session. Like I said, up to you what exactly will trigger it. And how you're setting that up from there. But at some point, likely during their first session, likely pretty early on, you're going to have it trigger and set up that ask. We usually recommend a center. We have 4 different types of in-app messages, top banner, bottom banner, center, and full. We usually recommend center, but you can also do full, especially if you're doing an onboarding carousel. That can be nice, but usually top banners and bottom banners are too small to kind of give it a lot of design and context. So that's the mobile side. For web, it's super simple. It's actually a part of when you are setting up our service workers into your website in general. A lot of these options that I've gone through, like logo, categories, delays, copy, those are all fields that are preset in the form that you're filling out as you are setting up your settings to initially launch on your site. So basically you are selecting all those items from a drop down, then we are giving you, a piece of code that you're then putting on your website. So yeah, all of that is completely out of the box for setting up the prompt. Also, we have quick start guides for both web and mobile. So those are kind of good, but from a technical perspective, the best thing to send any resources that are helping set this up for you. Okay. Ooh, okay. We have a new question. Will the new Mac releases, iOS, iPad, macOS, for Safari impact or expand upon these capabilities for web? This is a great question. I know a little tip of the iceberg about this. There might be more that I'm missing, but one thing I know for sure is right now for web push, you are able to set it up so that if someone is on a mobile website and they are signed up for web push on that browser, they can receive that push on their Android device. The new exciting update is that Apple has indicated they are going to follow suit. So the good news is people who are iOS users and they have signed in for web push, they'll actually be able to receive those push alerts to their phone. So this is going to open up a whole new audience, which is very exciting. So that is one of the very exciting new Mac releases. From a mobile perspective, like not outside of the Safari piece, I'm not sure if you're web or mobile. My suspicion is that you're web. From a mobile perspective, there are also going to be new like push activities, which is a new feature coming out to keep an eye on. I think it looks like it's kind of geared towards like this, like sports use cases is one of the examples that they gave, but something to keep an eye on. And we like to be really proactive about this, so we often will plan ahead to make sure that all our software and features supports all of the new releases as they're coming out. We partner pretty closely with those vendors. So I hope that answered your question, but the short of it is hopefully this will open up a big audience for people who are on web push to receive notifications on iOS. Okay, I have a new question. My current opt-in rate is low. Is there anything I can do to get my existing users to subscribe to messaging? Yes, so let's talk about mobile and web first. If the opt-in rate is low, there are a couple things that you can do. I mean, one is to delay to get higher value users, but of course you're going to miss some of the pie then. You're going to miss a little bit of that. I think all of the different prompts I mentioned that give people context about what they're signing up for. So this is, customizing the language and logo from a web dropdown or from a, mobile perspective, outlining the value prop. We mentioned there's like a 50% increase in people who are going to opt in for mobile if you do that iOS pre-permission. And I also think, like I said, if you don't have that now, it's worth getting ahead of it. It's also worth getting ahead of it because you're going to have to implement it for Android in September as well and increase both of those rates. So right now it's only a 15% bump for Android. I think that's likely going to get higher. That's going to be a higher number. So I think if the opt-in rate is low, making sure people understand what they're opting in for, giving them a bunch of context through those pre-permission prompts or through customizing the web push prompt. I think that's a really good way to increase it early. All right, we have 1 minute left. So I think we are going to have to wrap up here. But like I said, we have a lot of resources. We have support, like I mentioned. We have our documentation. So if you still have questions or if you're still curious about anything we talked about today, feel free to reach out to us. And thank you for listening.